All right, everyone. Well, we made it to Friday of VBS, and I hope this week has been as wonderful and special for you all as it has been for us. This really is one of my favorite weeks of the year, and something we all look forward to. We're going to wrap up this week of exploring about God and God as our friend with the theme of God is a friend for everyone. Thanks, God. And we're doing it with a less famous story than some of the stories we've been dealing with in the Bible, and that's the story of Lydia. This story comes to us from the book of Acts. So you will find the book of Acts after the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts. And it's understood that the author of Acts is the same author as the author of the Gospel of Luke. And he was probably a traveling companion of the Apostle Paul. And Paul will actually play a big part in really the second half of the book of Acts. It's really all about Paul and Paul's journeys. And Paul is just a significant person to Christianity in overall. He is the author of a bunch of letters that make up actually a little over half of the New Testament. Immediately following the book of Acts, we have the book of Romans, which is Paul's letter to the Romans, and then we have several of Paul's letters after that. By the way, the New Testament letters are grouped by author and are in descending order of length, starting with the longest. They're not in chronological order or any other kind of order. That's how they organized them. So Romans is Paul's longest letter, so it gets to go first, which is, I guess, a way to do it. Well, in the chapter of Acts we're in Acts 16, Paul is on his missionary journey where he's basically going around outside of Judea, outside of the place where Jesus spent his time in his ministry. He's getting far away from all of that and bringing this message of God's love and grace to all of these far-flung places, many of whom have never heard of Jesus before, were not aware of his ministry or anything like that. So Paul is out there in the world, in the wild, bringing this message. And he enters a new city and does what he often does, which is go to the places where people gather. And while today, that may be, around here like Hayes Market, can't seem to, go there without running into somebody I know, or something like that. He goes to the river in this story, and he goes to where people are likely washing clothes. And this was actually a communal activity at the time. You didn't have 2,000 years ago a washing machine in your house that could do it or anything like that. So, you would go and have to do it by hand. And if you're going to do something like that, you might as well do it with friends. So the market, Paul will spend a lot of time in. He'll spend some time in synagogues because there are what we call diaspora Jewish communities running around. These are communities of Jewish people that are not living in Jerusalem or in Judea or any of those kind of places. So he'll go there sometimes. And sometimes he'll go to the fields where people labor. People spend a lot of time together in a community doing these activities. You oftentimes had to go to a well to draw water. You would go at the same time your neighbors would go, and you would converse on there and on the way back. Kind of makes a lot of sense, really, if you think about it. The fact that we do things like commute alone in our cars, all by ourselves, a lot of us is actually a little funny. That for most of human history, we would have done everything in our power to do those things together. So Paul goes somewhere where he knows people are gathered, and he goes to talk to them and share this news and stories he has about Jesus, who Jesus is, what he came to teach them. And one of the people he meets is a woman named Lydia. Lydia is a really unique figure. We're not told a lot about her, but first and foremost, we're told her name. And not everybody in the Bible gets a name. And anytime we hear somebody given a name in the Bible, to the point that it's recorded down, so 2,000 years later we know, that's a signal that this person is important. Either they're an important person in society in general, or they're just an important person in the story. So the fact that we know Lydia's name, even though this is a pretty short little encounter, is interesting and tells us that she's somebody important. But if we did have her name, we would still know that because we're told what she does. She's introduced as a dealer in purple cloth. Now, this is important because she's not introduced as the wife of a dealer in purple cloth. She's introduced herself as a dealer in purple cloth, which means, first off, that she's really, honestly, at this point, a business owner, and she's a female woman business owner. 2,000 years ago, this would have been unique. And if you know anything kind of about history, about especially the history of colors, purple is a really interesting color because it's really, really hard to make purple dye. We, of course, now can do it with chemicals and chemistry and all that. But back then, it was actually very, very difficult to make purple dye. So really only really important people wore purple. It's where we get the tradition that kings or bishops in the church or whatever, purple is kind of the royal color, mostly because only really important people were wealthy enough to afford a purple cloth. So she's not only a business owner, she is a business owner whose business is luxury goods. And again, we know her name. Her name is Lydia. And so this is a really unexpected person for Paul to be encountered. And of course, Lydia is interested in what Paul is saying to the point that she actually invites him back to her house to stay with them so that she can learn more. And this is really just one small story in the book of Acts amongst so many stories in the book of Acts where Paul is going to all these different people. So we have an important female business owner that he's going to. He'll also go to slaves. He'll go to, people who are sick and offer them healing. He'll go to religious people. He'll go to non-religious people. He'll go to synagogues and talk to Jews about Jesus. But he'll also go to the Gentiles, which is sort of code in the Bible for anybody not a Jew. He'll go to them. And really, Paul's ministry becomes primarily about Gentiles, about people who are part of other different religious traditions at the time, or no tradition at all. And Paul does this over and over and over again. And we come to this story and we bring this up because it is that idea that God is a friend for everyone. This idea about God, God's love, our calling to love God, love neighbor, and love ourselves. This idea of Jesus and who Jesus was and who Jesus's message was for. It was for everybody. And Paul really lives and embodies that in his mission and ministry around. He talks to anybody and everybody he can. He doesn't automatically exclude anybody for who they are or where they come from or what education they have or don't have or anything. He doesn't pay attention to any labels that society may give people saying, oh, no, that person's a Jew, that person's a Gentile, this person's, a slave, this person's free, this person's this person that. Right? Paul doesn't pay attention to any of that. The only thing he cares about is, are these folks, are these people who are open to hearing the message of grace and peace and love that I have to share? And if they are, then fantastic. Paul wants to talk to them and share that message with them. We are about to go into, or we're already amidst, an interesting time of year that comes around every 4 years, which is an election season, a national election season. And I must confess, as a pastor, I really don't enjoy national election seasons. And the reason I don't is for all the normal reasons a lot of people don't like it. But there is so much us and them language. There are so many ways in which people are being labeled. People are labeling themselves. We're having to choose sides. We're taking, we're picking our team. Are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you independent? Are you a Green Party? Are you a Libertarian? Whatever, right? I mean, we are all doing that, and people are putting bumper stickers on their car to announce their allegiances. And of course, we're all running around with this idea that our candidate is the right candidate, our person is the right person, our issues are the right issues, and we're on the right side of them. Because honestly, if we didn't think they were right, then we probably wouldn't believe in them, but we do. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with anything like that. There's nothing wrong with our political process necessarily. But what I don't like about it is that it so quickly spills over to other places in life. It so quickly spills over to all the places in life. And we can start looking at people who have different political opinions as we do, not as people that we disagree with about politics, but we can start to see them as different people entirely, as if they are somehow fundamentally, physically, physiologically different than us, and sometimes, unfortunately, get to the point where we can think that they're either sometimes less than, or somehow broken, or whatever, any kind of negative connotations that we can see. Not only do I disagree with somebody maybe about politics or whatever it is, but too easy those labels spill over. If Paul let himself be overly obsessive with the labels that people put on themselves and society put on themselves, we likely would not be here with the message of Christ, with the understanding of God's grace and love and forgiveness for us. We likely wouldn't have that today. Christianity simply would not have spread if we, put up artificial barriers about who gets to be in, who gets to be not, who's worthy of hearing the message, who's not worthy. We're all either equally worthy or equally unworthy, depending on how you want to look at it. Because we're all, at the end of the day, God's beloved children made in God's image. We've all fallen short and messed up, and however, talk about it as sin, talk about it as a mistake, talk about it however you want to talk about it. We've all done that. None of us are really worthy of God or God's love, but it's not about being worthy anyway. So my invitation to you, as our kiddos spend the day exploring the idea that God is a friend for everyone, nobody's excluded from his love, even each and every one of them. Think about, today, and the week, and the months to come, as we move through this, time of election. Think about what you may or may not be intentionally or unintentionally communicating about your kids. It's perfectly wonderful to have political opinions. It's perfectly wonderful and necessary for us to participate in the political process. That's why our country works. And it's okay for those to even have strong opinions. But we need to be careful and make sure that we are not letting that different of opinion about politics or particular issues or whatever spill over into making more wide generalizations about people or groups of people. It is possible for thoughtful, wonderful, prayerful, considerate people to sometimes come to different conclusions around particular issues, whatever they may be. We need to make sure that we are not taking that so far to get to the point that we are writing off an entire other group as somehow less than, it's not as smart as us, whatever it may be. And we will be given many opportunities over the next weeks and months to do that, to paint people with a broad brush and make a lot of additional assumptions about folks that are probably untrue and likely unfair. And if we don't think our kids are watching us when we do that, if we don't think our kids aren't, taking that in alongside us, we're probably wrong. Our kids are paying more attention than we think we should. So we ourselves need to remember that God is a friend for everyone, thanks God, including that neighbor that we don't like very much who bothers us, people who maybe vote or think differently about things than we do, people who, cut us off in traffic on I-25, whatever it is, that God's love and God's grace and God's peace is for them too, just as it is for us. We are no more or no less worthy of God's love than they are. And that means we're all should be treated with a minimum of respect, which comes from recognizing we are all God's children and made in God's image. So maybe for us as parents, a little time to think and reflect how we will navigate these next couple weeks and months together, and how we can do that in a thoughtful, intentional, but also respectful and loving way, I think was really the most important for us. Lydia was not an expected person for Paul to talk to, and yet she becomes a really important person to the story of Christ and Christ's message getting spread into all the far-flung places, which means that we today get to hear that message as well. So I am grateful for Paul. I am grateful that he took that chance to step outside of what people would have considered the normal or correct people. And I'm grateful for Lydia that she was able to hear the message, and that we today get to hear it as well. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed these little parent podcasts as part of it. We really loved having your kids. I hope you'll consider joining us on Sunday as well, 9:30 for worship. This coming Sunday is going to be VBS worship. It's going to be VBS songs and all that kind of stuff. Your kids are welcome to come and sing. Even if you didn't RSVP for it on the little sheet, that's fine. Come anyway. And we're having an ice cream reception afterwards, and we would love to have you. And of course, we'd love to have you any Sunday. Any Sunday you're around 9:30, or you can visit downtown.church/live. You can catch our live stream there. Keep up on the life of the church. We would love to have you any and every time that you're around. All right, well, again, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this, and we'll see you not tomorrow, but we'll definitely see you next year, if not sooner. Thanks.